The most important part in helping employees to become advocates or to start creating their personal brands is to help them overcome those fears. And the most common fears are the imposter syndrome, when the person thinks and believes that he's not enough. For a year, give them a support, have monthly meetings, check how they're doing, what the results are, help them think of some topics, ask them what was the struggles.
Hello everyone and welcome to Kama PR Podcasts. My name is Maria and today we will talk about employee advocacy and personal branding. And today we have a very interesting guest with us, Deividas Budginas. Hello David, thank you so much for coming to our podcast, and can you please introduce yourself?
Hello Maria, hello the listeners. Yes, I'm Deividas, employee advocacy and personal branding coach. Actually working with employee advocacy probably since 2018, but I had a digital marketing agency for 7 years, and then slowly I fell in love with personal branding and employee advocacy and decided that this is a path and this is a place where I want to grow and where I want to focus. So yeah, almost for 2 years now I'm working solely on employee advocacy and personal branding.
And this is such a new thing to Lithuania. How is it going here? Do you face personally any difficulties in?
I believe a few years ago it was actually very tough and difficult. We didn't even had the phrase employee advocacy, we just were saying, let's make something with employee communication. We saw some client had some goals and KPIs, and they needed to reach some objectives, and we saw that besides all other actions, maybe employee communication could be also an additional way to go. Of course, because the Europe and the whole world was also going to this direction. Lithuania and the Baltics also saw the opportunity, and that the employee communication could be an asset for communication, marketing, HR purposes. In the last 2 or 3 years, I believe we have some kind of a boom of employee advocacy in Lithuania, and this topic becomes much more popular, and companies start to see the value in this, and they start to finally understand what the employee advocacy is. So yeah, I believe that the toughest times have passed, and I'm happy because this is a strategy, an initiative that could actually have a lot of great impact on companies, and also a great impact on employees itself. So it's kind of not only marketing for marketing's sake, but it also can grow the people that are involved in this.
Yeah, exactly. That affects people's psychology even much. And what does this term exactly mean, and how does it differ from other forms of communication?
Actually, there's a lot of different ways to understand employee advocacy, and this is the most difficult part, to find the common ground with companies. And even between consultants, especially when we compare, for example, Europe and the United States. Yeah, mm-hmm. In Europe and especially in Baltics, we understand employee advocacy as a tactic where we encourage our employees, company employees, to create their personal brands, to share their knowledge, expertise on different kind of channels. And by doing so, to help company grow their reputation, awareness, to attract employees, to strengthen the employer branding, and so on. In United States, for example, they understand it more like marketing creates some posts and then shares with 1,000 employees and just ask them to share those posts. Mm-hmm. And that's it. Employees are not creating authentic content. They are not creating, sharing their own expertise or stories. They're just, sharing something that marketing has passed to them. So it's not that either of these approaches are bad. Actually, the best results come from combining these two. And of course, there are always employees who are not willing and don't want to create their own content, but maybe they have some following, for example, on LinkedIn. But Also, there are some employees who can and want to create content. So if you combine all of them, you can get better results. Yeah.
And how is it going for the companies in Lithuania? Because I've heard in Lithuania and Baltic and in Europe, I've heard that most of the companies fail to implement such programs of employee advocacy.
I believe slowly the situation is changing, and more companies learn to implement employee advocacy. The main thing probably is to understand how to approach this strategy. Yeah. So I see that when companies, let's say, the best advocacy is natural advocacy.
Mhm.
And this is the best way when we have employees sharing, creating content, speaking about us on their own. But the practice shows that it's a very small amount of employees, probably under 1%, that does this. And also, it's very important what the culture in company is. If the culture is not positive, if the culture is not engaging, then it's very hard to expect for employees to share their opinion stories about us naturally. So this is why we need some kind of structure and some
Mhm.
kind of strategy. So this way, we in this part we get probably one main mistake that companies do. So they invite some trainers, some consultants to give some training for their employees, for potential advocates.
Mhm.
But most of the time they stop there. So they have depending on the company size, but let's say maybe 10, maybe 100 employees who have gone through the training, and they call them advocates. And that's okay, because the employees who come to the training are actually the ones that have some motivation and intention to do something, but they still have a lot of fears. They still have a lot of obstacles. And then we get, we have, in theory, we have 100 advocates, but when we see who are active, we have maybe 5 or 10 of them. 10%, let's say. Yeah. And this is because we stop here. We don't have a structure. We don't have a agreements with our advocates that, for example, let's agree, we give you training, we give you support, we give you some tools to make it happen, but let's agree that, for example, we will have 1 or 2 posts a month from you on the advocacy side. Or maybe if some of you are more feeling better to go on stage instead of writing, okay, let's say 1 conference in quarter or in half a year. Yeah. So this structure is very important to have a continuous program and to continuous success here. So just to emphasize, I'm a true believer and true supporter of natural advocacy, but at least for now, there's a very small amount of companies that can rely on natural. We still need some incentives here.
I see, but still, somehow, if we want employees to actively communicate on social media, we need to promote this idea
Yep.
to them. So, how do you encourage them to do this?
The hardest part actually is to promote this idea to employees, and sometimes to promote this idea to C-level and the CEOs.
Mhm.
So let's start maybe from employees. So if we just approach our employees by saying, we are doing this new initiative, we are trying to make some employee advocacy program, please join and speak about us online or anywhere else. This looks like just another HR or marketing initiative that we all who worked in corporate know that they have maybe 100 a year, and we're tired of this and don't want to join.
Yeah.
But if we show the personal value for them, then we can actually expect some traction and some engagement. So the most important thing is to show the personal benefits of becoming an advocate for employees, and also to enable them to create those personal brands and to share their stories, because a lot of times employees feel that if company is making some kind of employee advocacy initiative, they will be controlling the content that
Yeah.
employees will be sharing, and at sometimes this is the case. So this is a wrong way to go. Actually, if we let employees, of course we need to have some guidelines, but if we let employees to share their stories and we encourage them to create their personal brands, expertise, some struggle that they have, and this not necessarily need to be related to the company they work in,
Exactly.
we still will get results. Because when someone is speaking on social media, and for example on LinkedIn, we actually had advocacy in Lithuania research done this spring, and we saw that at least in Lithuania, 92% of participants of companies understand employee advocacy as a way of communicating on LinkedIn. So probably most of the time we speak about LinkedIn in this case, because a lot of us
Most popular social media.
yeah, most
for
popular social
business,
media in business and so on. Yeah. So if we even just present our stories and show our expertise, our audience sees that where we are working. Yeah, and also this is the case that a lot of CEOs probably don't understand that by creating their brands, employees are showing what kind of culture we have for our potential employees, candidates, and also what kind of team and experts we have for our potential clients. That's probably the main misconception that the managers and the executives, more of executives, have, that when our employees will start creating their own personal brands, they will leave, they will get hunted, they will create their own businesses, and
Yeah.
etc. There's a risk, of course, there's a risk, but first thing we see that when employees engage in employee advocacy, their engagement to the company, general engagement to the company, increases. So that means that when I participate in training and support system of advocates, I actually become more loyal to the company. And also we have from different kind of research that especially the younger generations, the millennials, the Gen Z, they are still in either case working in the same company most for 3 years. So we still have a risk for them to leave, but
They tend to change.
yeah,
their
but
work a lot.
we can choose. In those 3 years, are they creating the value only by doing their job, or maybe they can create 2 times, 3 times of value by promoting our company, for showing our values, for showing our expertise, and etc. So yeah, and of course there are some return on investment part. Of course, for example, a company that has at least 10 employees with more than 1,000 followers on LinkedIn, they can approximately save from 1,500 to 2,000 euros on LinkedIn ads a month.
Yeah.
So this is also, if someone has difficulties to explain the value of advocacy to their CEOs and executives, just get those numbers, and see.
And of course, people view very differently the promotion or the natural opinion, emotions, and thoughts of person who is working. That's much more trustworthy.
Yeah.
And maybe you will correct me, but as I see, the personal branding, the building of it is an investment, and C-level managers and CEOs, they see this value and they fear that the employee will be gone after some time, but the employees themselves, they don't see it as investment. How do you?
Yeah, this is the toughest part, because we still, from employee side, small amount of employees just understand that personal branding is actually changing and replacing, business cards, resumes, and etc.
Yeah.
And what I'm trying always to communicate to the employees, that you have a unique opportunity here, because the company is investing in you, and maybe some companies that does this don't want employees to think this way, but we all know from the research that probably no one will be working at the same company these days for 10 or 20 years, a small amount of employees. So the thing that you create now, the personal brand that you create here in this company, will work for you in your career probably until the end of it, even if you will continue strengthening it. So yeah, employees still struggle to understand this, but actually even if they do, there's a lot of fears and there's a lot of obstacles that they have that also comes in the way.
And we have a very good example in Lithuania. You mentioned before we started the recording, the president of our country we live in.
I like to include this in my training, that personal branding, especially in our country, can get you a lot of ways. Yes, our president Gitanas Nausėda was a spokesman for one of the banks, and he had a very strong personal brand. First of all in business, and first of all in his expertise. Only then he came on other topics.
Yeah, and this is a unique opportunity, as you said, when the company is investing in you, of course, while you work there, and also getting the benefit in reach and in trustworthiness of the company. Could you share some secrets on how to actually make the strategies of employee advocacy work for your business? So mostly.
Yeah, well, I don't know if we can call them the secrets, but there's a lot of things that we can do. First of all, I probably would like to come back a bit to the fears and obstacles that employees have. And even if you're not thinking of creating official programs and having official initiatives, just have some encouragement, and for example just have one or two training. Don't focus solely on LinkedIn, other social media, or creating the content. The most important part in helping employees to become advocates or to start creating their personal brands is to help them overcome those fears. And the most common fears are the imposter syndrome, when the person thinks and believes that he's not enough, that
not
he don't
PhD yet.
Or even if I have a PhD, someone else knows this topic better. I already saw someone speaking about it. No one will be interested in me, and etc. So we probably will have to speak for a few hours to give some actions and some methods to overcome this. But there are a lot of ways, and you can maybe get some psychology experts, or maybe you can just speak about this and help to your employees understand that they actually have something to share. For example, the easiest way is to recommend your employees to ask their family, friends, colleagues, and if they have a great relationship with their clients, what do you think my best qualities as a professional is, and what do you think if I would start speaking in conferences or posting on LinkedIn, what do you see, what topics do you see in me as an expert? And most of the time when we get these answers, we have that aha moment that all the others see me as an expert here and there, but only me myself was doubting myself. So I read somewhere that for imposter syndrome, the main thing is that we doubt ourselves. But if we doubt ourselves, shouldn't we also doubt our imagination that we are not enough? Maybe this is where we also wrong. Yeah,
that's a great point.
And then there are a lot of other obstacles. Some fear negative comments. Some is comparing themselves to others. For example, we see a lot of people speaking about communication or LinkedIn about LinkedIn on LinkedIn, and naturally these people get a lot of likes, comments, engagement, and etc. But I also see somewhere a great quote, that the best way to become famous on LinkedIn is to speak about how to become famous on LinkedIn. And if you start to comparing yourself with people who are speaking about it, of course your results will look worse, But you should start to learn to overcome this. Of course, there's other things like like we lack some knowledge, we lack some skills in writing, and etc. There, I have
Public speaking
yeah,
skills. Yeah.
speaking skills and all the other things, privacy, lack of time, we don't believe in social media, etc. There are probably, I have listed mainly 12 things that most of the employees fear, but there are a lot of different approaches how to approach this and how to help them overcome this. But we need to do that first before we teach them how to write, how to behave on LinkedIn, what's the LinkedIn's algorithm or Facebook algorithm or Instagram algorithm, or how to speak publicly on stage. The best example from one of my clients, he said, I was even written the post, I uploaded it into LinkedIn, and what was left just to press post. But I stopped there because before I pressed post, I understood that I'm not enough. What I'm doing here, who am I to post this? No one will be interested. I will have some, negative feedback. So this is on the fear side.
It's if I can introduce, for me personally, it's very sad that people who have a huge expertise,
Yeah.
they are facing this problem, that they think they're not enough from this presenting yourself, self-presentation side, and they stop. And in this they create a gap which is filled by a lot of content just in sake of creating content.
Yeah, this is so true, and I can so relate here. We see that we have a lot of person creating content on LinkedIn in Lithuania, in Europe, everywhere. But most of that content falls into, as you said, that generic content. Oh, I'm thrilled to announce I'm just visited some conference. Okay, what you learned there, But yeah, all the time when we have workshops with clients and I help them understand and see the topics that they have, I always come of those after the end of those workshops with the hope that they will really start posting, because I see how many interesting topics they have and they have inside them, and I honestly would like to read about them, to see their expertise, but all that's all doubt, most of the time stops us. So yeah, this is an important part to start with. But on the company side, on more strategic parts, some secrets, as you said, So the first thing to understand that not everyone will become those advocates, as we understand, the ones that will post frequently, that will speak a lot, etc. These are the advocates, let's call them that. But we also have other groups of employees that we can include in our initiative. So the first thing is spontaneous creators. So, for example, there are a lot of employees who will say, I am not ready yet to have make a commitment to post 2 times a month, for example. Yeah, but I can maybe share content from time to time. For example, Ignitis Group, one of the biggest companies in Lithuania, they had a initiative. They shared the hashtag how I found myself in energy sector, and that month we had we saw more than 70 posts with that hashtag, and most of the people that posted, employees who posted with this hashtag, were the ones that either never communicated before or just communicate 1 time a year. So we need to include the ones that are not ready yet to be very active, but can be active from time to time, and then help them to get some subjects, and some occasions to post. So we call that occasion maps. Yeah. So maybe you can have some dates that they can relate to, or maybe you can have some topics like the one that I'm just told. Yeah. And this also helps. And then we have accelerators, the ones that probably will never post, or at least for some years are not ready to post. But in this category, we usually have a lot of employees who have 1,000, 5,000, even 10,000 followers, but they are not ready to post. Okay, ask them to like, comment, or share the post by those advocates and spontaneous creators, and this way help those employees reach wider audience. So when we have all those 3 groups, we can get the best results. And then there's motivational programs, which is very important. And the biggest tip here is not to focus on monetary bonuses. And if it's possible, just don't have them at all. The best way to motivate people is to help them grow their personalities. So, for example, maybe invest in their some additional trainings and etc. And the last thing, the most important, well, not the last thing, but the most important thing is the continuity and the support system. We call this advocate teams. So after the training, after the workshops, after you have the program ready, after you have the commitment that they will post 2 times a month, 1 time a month, 4 times a month, depending on your agreement, you cannot leave them alone. At least for half a year, or at some cases maybe for a year, give them a support. Have monthly meetings. Check how they're doing, what the results are. Help them think of some topics. Ask them what was the struggles. For example, there are employees who start posting and their post gets only 1 or 2 likes, and they say that's, well, no one is interested. But maybe one thing, that person has 50 followers, or maybe he has more connections, but he just, for example, this is a real example, just have switch his or hers specialty. Yeah, for example, come
Yeah.
from communication to finance. Yeah, and all of his contacts are in communication, and he started talking about finance. No one is interested. So you can help them get some strategies how to attract, how to invite contacts that can would be interested in their content. But if we don't have the support, if we don't have these monthly meetings, most of the time we have a lot of activity the first month, then some half activity the second month, and then everything stops.
Loses
So yeah,
motivation.
so you need to have monthly meetings. They should have someone to write, for example, do you think if this post is great? Yeah, so yeah.
And maybe some discussions here
Yeah,
in
yeah,
the,
yeah,
the
yeah,
team.
yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing these tips. So if I can sum up a little bit, as far as I understood, there should be a support for your employees.
Yeah.
Secondly, there should be a structure, or it should be something understandable if it's a big company, something simple,
Yeah.
like you shared with Ignitis company. And also they should get some, well, psychological, if we can say, support, well, some mentorship, if we can call it, so they would feel that they are really worthy, and probably to promote to them the idea that creating personal brand is the way to be now. And as you said, it works better than CV
Yep.
and other things. So, and maybe you could also share the other platforms where you can, some ideas where you can share your thoughts and become a thought leader.
Yeah, well, as I mentioned, LinkedIn is probably the top, but that's not necessarily the only. For example, if you're a company that's not entirely working with, let's call them office employees, but for example, logistics, yeah, we had a project where if you're looking, for example, if your employee advocacy objective is to attract more drivers, you probably won't find them on LinkedIn, but you can find them on Facebook groups that consist of drivers and etc. So the best way is to think where your audience is and then go there. So it could be Facebook groups, it could be Instagram if you're B2C brand, or your potential employees are young generation, or your products are B2C. Yeah. But also besides the social media, because you can use all the social media. But of course, there's the live events like conferences, and this is especially for executives. They always say that we don't have a time to create some posts, but maybe we can prepare them to go to the conferences.
Yeah.
There are webinars, there are podcasts like this one, and of course there are media. The media actually, when you start creating your personal brand on social media, on LinkedIn, there's a lot of big chance, especially in our market, which is very small, to get attention from media, because they lack of new faces and new ideas.
This is so true. I agree with you. Dave, thank you so much for coming to us today and sharing your thoughts. I believe it will be very valuable for our viewers and for people who are creating business and who are working in business and creating their personal brands.
Thank you for inviting me, and that was a pleasure. Yeah.
And thank you so much for watching and listening to us. Please subscribe to our channel and to Deividas social media. And see you next time with the new episodes and with the new interesting guests.